So one of the questions that gets thrown around a lot in the sports and fitness and training industry is there such thing as being strong enough? Um, Short answer would be it all depends, really. That's where I'm going to stand on it. Um, Obviously, there's different types of strength. So there's maximal strength, there's explosive strength, there's speed strength, speed, and those all pertain to how quickly the movement is done or how fast the bar moves. There is strength endurance. There's absolute strength. There's isometric strength. So there's all different types of strength, and they're all going to have different. They're all going to play different roles in different sports. So, you know, maximal strength is going to play a bigger role in football or wrestling or baseball than it will in cross country running or marathoning or something like that, or an endurance type of sport. But it still is going to be important in those sports because um, basically the stronger you are for one rep or the stronger absolute strength you have, the more potential you have, and that's the key word, potential you have to have endurance. So think about it this way: like when we do 225 bench press tests in the NFL Combine, you see the guys on TV doing that stuff. Um, Benching two, if you could bench 600 pounds and or say you could bench 500 pounds, 225 is 50%. Now, if I can only bench 300 pounds, 225 is going to be a much greater percentage of my maximal. Who do you think is going to bench 225 more? Who's going to have more endurance at that weight? Exactly. So the guy who benches more, the guy who benches 500. So that is why we're always trying to improve the maximal strength, and that will help you be able to have more potential with the other types of strength. Same thing with explosive strength. So that's the number one thing I think that people forget. Now, a lot of times you say, well, yeah, but powerlifters could squat 1,000 pounds, but they're not the fastest athletes. Yes, because they don't have the most explosive strength. There's different athletic qualities. Their ground contacts aren't that fast. So obviously the genetics is going to play a huge role in that type of thing. But I would say most elite world-class sprinters are going to be very strong, much stronger than slower sprinters, right? So that's number one. So the different types of strength, max effort is king, because it gives you more potential to improve other types of strength. Now, with that being said, one of the goals, I think a lot of coaches say you shouldn't chase numbers in the weight room. Yes, that's true to a certain extent, but a good goal to have would probably be 1.5 times body weight in bench, 2 times body weight in the squat, and 2.5 times in a deadlift. And those are good full range of motion lifts. So if a 200-pound athlete could squat 400, a really solid 400-pound squat, deadlift 500, bench 300, those are great numbers for a 200-pound athlete. And most of the athletes that I've trained, definitely have the potential to get near there or above there. And those, I've seen those numbers kind of play out. The athletes that kind of get into that range are going to have a lot more success than the athletes that are way behind there. So those are like some standard numbers. Obviously, we're going to have guys that are going to be stronger than that. And any type of strength you could add to that is going to be an added bonus. But what happens is, I think a lot of times coaches get discouraged because getting to these numbers, maybe some kids get there relatively easy, but getting past those numbers takes a lot more work. And is that work going to be better suited towards putting it into bringing these numbers up or making your sport better? But this leads me to the next point, which is you can't say, okay, I got here, I'm strong enough, now I can neglect this and do other things with my time. Because what happens is you use it or lose it. You only will maintain that maximal strength for so long. Obviously, you could go away from it and build it back up again, but then your performance is going to suffer as you get away from that. Okay, so there is no off season for serious athletes. You can't just say, "Oh, I'm going to lift for these 3 months and then not lift for those 6 to 9 months." It doesn't work like that. You have to be continually maintaining and improving your strength levels, or any type of, it could be different types of strength. You might say, I'm going to take 3 weeks and back off max effort training, but I'm going to do a lot more explosive training or strength. I'm going to substitute with strength endurance because I need to bring up my endurance for a 225 bench press test. Okay, maybe you can make that argument, but in the long run, you can never, that won't work in the long run. Okay, so you need to be able to prioritize different types of strength that you want to train. And my last thing I want to talk about, it would be some athletes are going to be born freakishly strong. They'll walk into the weight room and they'll pull up 350, 400 pounds without even training, and they're 13 years old or 15 years old or something, 16 years old. Obviously, that's going to be a rarity. I think that the strength is going to be, for 99% of the athletes, strength is going to be constantly going to need to be improved and worked on. Yes, there are always going to be those outliers that could not sprint for 6 months and go out and bust out a 4.40, but that's very, very rare. And same thing with the weight room, same thing with the strength training. It's going to be very, very rare. So in my mind, strength is the genetic equalizer. Good training is the genetic equalizer. It's going to take the average athletes and make them be able to compete with the absolute best athletes. And it's going to take those guys, if you train those guys right, it's going to make them dominant, unstoppable, basically. So strength is going to always be that genetic equalizer. And that's why I believe in what we do. That's why I believe in why training is so important, because I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with a lot of athletes I've trained. It's going to be the genetic equalizer. So, long story short, I guess it depends. If strength, is strength going to be, can you have too much strength? I don't think so. That's just me, but obviously there's going to be people who disagree with me, and that's fine. I've heard that you can never be too rich, too beautiful, or have too much strength. So, we hear that a lot in the industry. So I kind of tend to agree with that. You should always be working on some type of strength development.